What's a local rumor you heard as a kid that turned out to be true years later?
Experience 1. The most popular boy in middle school disappeared after 7th grade. Literally, his parents sold their house and moved to a new house nearby but pretty secluded. He enrolled in a really expensive private school and cut off all ties with his friends. At the same time, a really popular male social studies teacher went on leave. Rumors circulated that the boy was assaulted by the teacher and that's why they were both gone. The other popular kids got really pissed when people said that because they really liked the teacher and the kid. Eventually, people stopped talking about it. Fast forward to my senior year in high school. He shows up at our prom as the date of his 5th grade girlfriend. The first time anyone had seen him in years. Apparently, he reached out to the girl to ask if she had a date because he wanted to see all his old friends one last time. Apparently, he was assaulted by the teacher during tutoring sessions at the teacher's home. The school district and his parents agreed to bury it in exchange for tuition to the private school. He never wanted to leave and really resented his parents for it. By the time prom rolled around, he was 18 and they couldn't stop him. He wanted to set the story straight and let everyone know he was sorry for just disappearing. Experience 2. A vagrant-looking man used to collect cans from local parks and whatnot. Imagine someone pushing a shopping cart in tattered clothing. Rumor was he was generationally wealthy, and when he passed away, he left a fortune to the park and rec department to update facilities. Edit, apparently this happens in a lot of places, which is awesome to hear. Edit number 2, his name was Nick, and this was in Wisconsin back in the late 1980s/early 1990s. Experience 3. One of my 4th grade teachers seemed a bit creepy and loved taking pictures of his class. A few years later, he got busted with a few gigabytes of child explicit videos on his computer. And this was in the 90s. Much later, like after I had finished high school and college, I decided to Google his name again. He got out of prison after 8 or 9 years, and then within a year got busted again and immediately went back. Experience 4. This is a little more lighthearted. But when I was in elementary school, probably like 3rd grade, all the kids in my class would joke about how our primary teacher and our Spanish teacher liked each other. We were all little kids, so of course it was just dumb little kids joking about around. That is, until a few years later when I was in middle school, I found out my old teacher and Spanish teacher recently got married. Experience 5. My grade 5 teacher was a very awkward man. Kind, but weird. We had a substitute teacher every once in a while, who was recently divorced, a stunning lady with her 3-piece outfits, sculpted cheekbones, and big eyes. I swore in grade 6 that they were dating but couldn't prove it and no one would believe me. Until my oldest was in grade 1 and I was in the class to ask the teacher a question. I realized immediately that this Mrs. Y was my substitute from 20 years earlier and that she had in fact been dating and then married my grade 5 teacher. Then high school. My advanced math teacher was an awkward woman. Kind, geeky, but weird. We also had a substitute teacher who was geeky but tall and handsome with gorgeous blonde hair. I was in an all-girls high school, so girls being girls, we all fawned over him. By grade 11, I swore that their casual chit-chat in the hallway was making date plans after school, but still couldn't prove it either. Part of my stand-up bit for grade 12 Frosh Week was introducing teachers to the new students, and I welcomed those teachers as Mr. and future Mrs. X. A few years later they were married. Both couples are still happily together. The first couple are now enjoying retirement. Experience 6. That a quiet and polite dude we knew growing up was a murderous and ruthless gang leader. We used to go to his parties, we saw him on the town and always exchanged pleasantries. We would see him at the bar, and there was little indication he was not to be messed with until one day we bumped into him in a parking lot. Again, exchanging pleasantries, how are you, what's going on this weekend, etc. A truck pulled up a couple of spots over. He said,
Just a sec.
and calmly walked over to talk to the guy. A short conversation ensued, and he opened the driver's door and started pummeling the guy. Like on top of him in the driver's seat, punching down. We were stunned. After a short while, he got out of the truck and walked back to calmly finish his conversation with us like nothing happened. We saw the truck pull away, so we think the guy lived. A few years afterwards, more rumors surfaced about him, and it made sense that they were true until one day his arrest made international headline news. He received a heavy sentence for a ton of different crimes, likely won't ever be free, and his affiliates are still doing business. Experience 7. U.S. Midwest. Rumor has it that way up the old road out of town, somewhere in the woods, was a satanic cult that held seances and other mystical rituals by firelight. Scared the willies out of us kids, and our parents wouldn't let us ride our bikes anywhere on that road. Decades later, I was working on a commissioned history project for the town and talked to the old man who owned the oldest homestead in the county way back in the woods along that road. While photographing the creek that ran through the stone foundation basement of the home, which the settlers used for water generations ago, I noted the burned-out tea candles everywhere. The guy lit up and said yeah, back in his younger days he and his wife used to host elaborate costume parties at the property, often by candlelight for the fun of it. He'd heard the rumors of the satanic cult and thought it was hilarious, so he and his friends ran with it and held parties in monks' robes and had bonfires and lived it up. He still laughs about it, and now, so can I. Experience 8. There was a rumor at my high school that the building down the way was a cult. It wasn't unheard of to dare people to go over there and then you'd end up being followed or sometimes invited to dinner. Turns out, it was the HQ of the cult the Duggars were in, IBLP. I was watching that documentary, and my mind was blown because all the high school rumors had been true. Experience 9. I have 2. Both are about elderly men. First, there was an elderly man who could be seen walking all over town. Long gray beard. Usually seen in tattered clothes. Walking Man or the Silver Bullet were nicknames for him. The rumor was he was actually really wealthy, but lots of people just assumed he was homeless because he was always walking, carrying groceries or whatever. Well, about a year before he passed, it came out that he was actually one of the wealthiest residents in our town when he donated millions to local youth programs and schools. Turns out, he just liked walking a lot and placed no value on material things like clothes and cars. Second, there was an elderly man who was actually homeless. The rumor was that he drank himself crazy some years back and just never got help. He was in and out of jail a bunch, but always seemed to be given some slack by law enforcement. This truth is tragic. He did drink himself crazy out of necessity. He was a paramedic. One night he responded to a wreck that turned out to be his wife and daughter had been hit by a distracted driver speeding on a narrow road. Neither survived. Understandably, he was never okay after that. He would sometimes check the pizza shop I used to manage for spare slices. Broke my heart that all I could do was offer him some free pizza. Hope you can rest in peace now, Red. Experience 10. When I was in high school, there were rumors about a kid in my class R-word a bunch of kids. He was a very weird kid. Everyone assumed it wasn't true and just a mean rumor. During a class, another kid said something to him about it. He angrily shouted, "Nothing has been proven yet." The entire class just stopped and awkwardly stared at him. That was 30-some years ago. He is still in prison for R-worded dozens of kids while working in his church's nursery. Experience 11. We had a rumor about there being a white horse in the woods behind the movie theater in our town. There were a couple of homeless people living there though, so no one went and checked it out. Well, before seeing a movie one day, me and a couple of friends decided to make the trek. We stumbled past the makeshift camp and found a small path that led to a fence. We stood there for a couple of seconds, and then, seemingly out of nowhere, a majestic white steed came trotting towards us. We snapped a quick pic on an early 2000s cell phone of our friend and the horse and got the hell out of there. The pic looked absolutely fake, and no one believes us about it to this day. Experience 12. A kid in my 3rd grade class was always late to school. I'm talking he once showed up to school 5 minutes before classes were released to go home. The rumor among parents and teachers was that his mom was an alcoholic and the dad lived a couple of towns over, so he often had to wait for his dad to take him or take care of his mom until she was well enough to drive. This was a private school with no bus. She died of liver failure a few months ago according to Facebook. Makes it so much more screwed up that everyone knew, including the teacher, and didn't have any sympathy for him. I distinctly remember the teacher telling him on multiple occasions that it was his responsibility to show up on time. When he was 8, was he supposed to drive himself? Makes me so sad and I hope he's doing okay now. Experience 13. In middle school, our janitor was this kind of mean, gross dude who kids were mean to. Making fun of him and giving him crap nicknames like Dirty Dan. But he also happened to be one of my best friends / middle school girlfriend's dads. The rumors kids threw around were that he was a minor attracted person and child predator. I went to their house many times and even stayed over once or twice. He was an asshole and so was his son, and the house was absolutely disgusting, but my friend needed company, so we didn't just leave. It was a sad house, and she was clearly sad, but all she ever said was that he was an angry guy. Years later, I lost contact with my friend, and we all graduated high school. The summer after graduation, the janitor and his son were both arrested for child explicit videos and assault. I never felt so nauseous as I did read that article. I wish I knew how she was doing. Experience 14. Very local, as it was around the office and not town in general. I worked for this manager who people always said was off in some way. No one was really sure, he was always fair and decent to work for me, but I kept hearing people say they heard things from other people. He said some things that made people feel pretty uncomfortable. At one point he supposedly made a joke about killing his roommate because she made him angry, so you wouldn't want to make him angry. Crap like that. I never heard any of it firsthand, but I also didn't talk to the managers that much. He left very suddenly one day, and the rumor was he was fired because he said and did something screwed up during the morning manager's meeting with the company higher-ups. After that, it was always a bit of a debate with my friends who worked there if he was really a good person or not. That got answered pretty definitely a few months later when he went to prison for life for the murder of his roommate. He claimed self-defense, but it was ruled that beating her dozens of times with a hammer, immediately maxing out her credit cards and draining her bank account, then telling her adult children their mother had taken a sudden vacation, doing indecent acts with the body, then throwing the body off the balcony and into the bushes by the parking lot, was probably not, in fact, self-defense. Experience 15. There was a summer camp in East TN my scout troop used to go to that was out of council, so we had to be invited, and there was this hike that was part of the first year's class. Class was pretty much how to not die at summer camp, that took you to this beautiful overlook that gave gorgeous views of the valley and the part of the Appalachians we were in. The thing is, this overlook was outside of the camp property, or so we were told, so they had to get permission every time they took the kids out there, and the area was strictly off limits to everyone. Of course, rumors and legends were everywhere in this camp, and being the mid-2000s, one of them was that if you went to the overlook at night, the lights in the valley below spelt gay. Keep in mind that gay was the funny word back then, and everything among middle and high school boys was called gay. Now we'd heard this legend for years, and one year due to shenanigans my troop got up to, we were told we wouldn't be invited back the following year. So, a couple of my friends got together on the last night of camp and said,
You know what? If we don't go tonight, we'll never be able to confirm or deny the legend. So let's sneak out and put this thing to rest.
So, we snuck out after lights out, took the 2 to 3 mile hike out to the overlook, and I swear, right hand to God, the lights below actually spelled out, in messy but clearly legible letters, capital GAY. We all kind of just stood there for a few minutes in stunned silence, because absolutely none of us expected it to be even partially true. And I'm sure no one believed us when we told them and thought we were perpetuating a lie, but I swear it actually said that.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.